Hello everyone, Neil Tappin and Jeremy Ellwood here from Golf Monthly, and welcome to West Hill Golf Club. And this video, which Jez, we're going to talk about bunkers, in particular the rules that you need to follow if ever you find yourself in a bunker, because under the rules of golf, they have their own section within the book,
They do. Rule number 12, bunkers, and what you can and can't do, relief procedures, and everything you need to know about playing from a bunker. I think it's worth saying at this point that the ball is in the bunker if any part of it is within the edge of the bunker.
Right.
So usually that will be fairly clearly defined, and if there's a spell where there would normally be sand and there isn't sand, that would still be classed as being within the bunker.
Yeah, you sometimes get periods where you get heavy rain, where the rain sort of drains some of the sand away.
Yeah.
So that defines when you are and aren't in the bunker. I guess the first thing to talk about, the first rule to mention, is that you're not allowed to ground your club in the bunker. You're not allowed to touch the sand with your club.
You're not, and that is the default position within the rules, is you can't touch the sand. There are then some exceptions which we'll go on to in a minute, but you can't ground the club behind the ball, so you can't do that. You can't catch the sand on your backswing, that would still be a penalty.
Yes.
And you can't do one of these and have a little practice swing to find out how the club might react when it goes through the sand.
No, that would all of those would be sort of testing the conditions, testing the sand.
Yes.
Which you've got to remember ultimately that a bunker is supposed to be a sort of hazard that you've got to try and show an element of skill to get out from.
That's
and
how
actually the ground conditions are what determines the difficulty, aren't they?
I mean, that's how the rulebook introduces it. They are specially prepared areas which are designed to test your ability to play from the sand. So the other thing you can't do, which we didn't mention, was you can't test the condition of the sand. So you can't sort of rub the club along to find out how deep the sand is, or get your hand down and scoop a bit up and see how much sand there is there. And I think we had an incident only recently from when we were shooting this video where a guy in the US Amateur, his caddy, went in, scooped some sand around on the last hole, critical match, all square going up the last, and the guy lost the hole as a result, because the penalty is the general penalty, so loss of hole in match play, 2 strokes in stroke play, all square going up the last. Caddy takes a handful of sand, you lose the match. Not a happy bunny, I would imagine. No.
Yeah. So, but one thing you are allowed to do, and if you watch any tour golf, you will have seen tour players do it regularly. You are allowed to sort of shuffle your feet into the sand to provide you with that sort of stability for the swing that you need when playing from bunkers. I guess it's important to say that whenever you're playing a bunker shot, it's quite an athletic movement, and it's right that you need a sort of a firm base to play the shot from. Yeah,
sand is obviously not a very firm surface, and your feet will move around in it. The firmer you can get them set in, the better. So the rules say you can dig in. What you can't do is, if your ball's up here, you can't sort of drag sand down to level out the stance, because that would be considered to be improving the conditions affecting your stroke. Exactly. So, but you can dig in. Anything like that, perfectly normal, stable base from which to play the shot.
Now there are, as you mentioned earlier, Jez, a few exceptions
to
when your golf club or you are allowed to touch the sand before you've played. Let's run through a couple of those now.
Okay, well the first one is you're allowed to tidy up other parts of the bunker away from where your ball is lying for care of the course purposes. Now you might have to be a bit careful on this bunker here, because we're going that way, and if you started tidying up the front of the bunker there, your ball could end up in there
if you don't hit a very good bunker shot. But it's happened before, hasn't it?
Somewhere over here at the back, which you can't see, you could come in and tidy that up, and that would be considered a good deed rather than a penalty offence.
As long as you're not using that as a way of testing the conditions of the bunker. One that I thought about was, let's say you're in a fairway bunker, let's say from here. You know that your ball is somewhere towards the edge of the face. You're thinking it's either going to be a 7-iron to the green or a wedge out. You're allowed to bring both clubs with you, and then the club that you decide not to use, you can then just discard down next to the bunker.
There's no penalty for, the rules actually say throwing or setting down a club, so I wouldn't recommend chucking it, but if you just sort of flick the one you're not going to use away and get ready to play with the other one, that is not a penalty offence, so you can do that. Right,
and then what happens if the bunker that you're playing from to get into it is particularly steep? And you're in danger of falling over?
My age, is that what you're suggesting? You can steady yourself with a club. If you think you're going to lose your balance or you're about to fall, don't worry about grounding the club, as it were, to steady yourself. That's perfectly acceptable.
Yeah, and then the other one is if you have a slightly angry moment.
You leave this in here, plug it up the face somewhere, a little bit angry, and just lay the club into the sand. And most golfers will have done that at some stage.
Yeah, wouldn't recommend it, but most of us have done it.
And there is no penalty for doing that, other than you look like an angry golfer.
Yes, okay. So let's talk now about loose impediments.
Yes.
So often when you're playing bunkers, I mean, it's not quite autumn here yet in the UK, but it's coming, and there's going to be leaves around and twigs and all sorts of different things, bits of other people's divots. Yeah. What are the rules relating to loose impediments? Because they've changed, haven't they, Jez?
Yeah, loose impediment is an unattached natural object, so this little bit of grass and turf here would class. Formerly, you wouldn't have been allowed to touch that in a bunker. You would have been penalised for doing so. Now you can remove loose impediments. You used to be able to remove stones if the local rule was in force. Now you can obviously remove any loose impediment in a bunker, including stones. It doesn't have to be a local rule in force.
And I think it makes sense, doesn't it? I think it's always felt a little bit unfair if your ball has come to rest very close to sort of a pine cone or something in a
twig
bunker.
or yeah.
I always felt a bit hard done by in that scenario.
Yeah, particularly a stone because of the danger of the stone flying up and hitting you in the face. But most clubs did have the local rule. Now they don't need it.
So what happens then if the scenario? I've hit my ball in the face of the bunker, and it's resting against a pine cone that's keeping it upright.
Right.
What do I need to do in this scenario? Because this strikes me as being potentially quite dangerous.
Well, I mean, this is where you've just got to read that new rule with a bit of caution, because being able to remove loose impediments doesn't mean that there won't be a penalty if your ball moves in the process. Right. So if your ball is indeed there resting on a cone and you move the cone and the ball rolls down into the flat part of the bunker, you will be penalised. You must replace the ball and you will be penalised a shot for that. So
yeah, so that's quite painful actually, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're not going to do that. I mean, it's well worth knowing. So anytime you are moving loose impediments in the bunker, be careful. Be careful.
Because you haven't got carte blanche to do absolutely everything with them if they're going to move your golf ball.
Let's now talk about unplayable lies. There might be occasions where you find your ball in a bunker and it's in a completely unplayable area.
Yeah. Okay.
What are your options in that scenario?
Well, you've got the usual 3 unplayable options, which are going back under stroke and distance to play it again from wherever that was.
Yep.
You can drop within 2 club links, not near the hole, or you can go back online, but in the rules as they were, both of those had to be within the bunker for a 1-shot penalty.
Yep.
Now there is an additional option where you can drop back online outside the bunker, but it's an extra shot, so it's a 2-shot penalty.
And that's, I mean, that feels a little bit harsh. I mean, it's not harsh, it's well worth considering. So an extra 2 shots is quite a lot, so consider that one. What happens if there's water in the bunker?
Water in the bunker obviously shouldn't be there. It's classed as temporary water, just as it would be on the fairway. You are entitled to relief from that. You must take relief within the bunker. If you can't take complete relief, you are allowed to take maximum available relief, and that might mean there's an area where your feet would still be in the water but the ball will be out. You could take that. I'm afraid if there's nowhere in the bunker to drop it, you would have to drop outside under penalty.
So there you have it. Hopefully that tells you everything you need to know about when you're faced with a bunker shot, the rules that relate to that. They're well worth knowing. Guys, before you go, please do leave some comments below. If there's anything that we've missed that you feel is worth clarifying, please do leave comments, ask questions. We'll get back to as many of you as possible. But for now, from West Hill, it's goodbye.